To When the Smoke Clears, I am the recovery plug. What's happening, man? I hope you guys are doing great today. I know my day's going pretty good. So before we get started, if you would please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayers for the addict who still suffers. For those of us who are still bound down to some sort of struggle that keeps us from moving forward in this toxic life that we live in. If you would please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Oh, well, let's get started. Well, how's it going, man? It's going pretty good, I guess. You know what I mean? I got some things that I want to discuss with you guys today. Here of late in my own personal spiritual life, I've been doing a lot of studying, getting ready for this advanced Lotus Sutra retreat that I'm going to go to, and I made a commitment to take on an advanced study of the Lotus Sutra, and so that means really digging into a Buddhist spiritual practice, really getting down to the core of the teachings and understanding the teachings, understanding how to incorporate the teachings into your daily spiritual life and into your daily life, of your normal everyday living, because ultimately what it means is that you decided to say, hey, I'm going to start living this way. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to start doing things in this way to alleviate suffering of not only myself, but of all sentient beings, no matter who they are, or where they come from, where they derive from. Because ultimately we all derive from the same thing, no matter if it's the smallest organism or if it's an individual. You know what I'm saying? So that's the commitment, and it's a strong commitment. It's a really it's a life-changing commitment, and because I'm on this journey, I want to share with some of it with you guys. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm in the last part of, in this study you have to study 8 chapters. You have to study them. You have to write an essay about them and how they affect you in your life and that sort of thing. So I'm on my last chapter, which is the 5th chapter of Innumerable Meanings, and it's called Medicinal Herbs, Chapter 5, Medicinal Herbs, and man, I want to discuss that chapter with you guys, and reason being is because I've read it a lot of times already. You know what I mean? I've read this chapter. I can guarantee you I've read it more than 10 times in the last 3 weeks. I've read that chapter at least, for sure, 10 times. No, it's probably more than that, because I've been reading it every single day, sometimes 2 to 3 times in a day, because I feel like there's something missing. When I read it, I'm like, gosh, I didn't comprehend the whole thing. I feel like there's something missing that I need to go back. And every time that I would go back to read it, something new came up. So what I want to do is I just want to discuss that chapter with you guys. I want to kind of show you what the medicinal herb chapters mean. And the medicinal herbs is a parable. It's one of the parables of the Threefold Lotus Sutra, of the 7 parables of this book, and so I believe it's the 3rd parable of 7, and it's got a lot of insight, man. A lot of insight. It gets you to thinking, and it has me. It has opened that, if you would, that third eye of spirituality. It almost feels like I'm viewing it in a third person, in a sense. like I can see the reading, I can see myself reading the reading, and I can see myself thinking about myself reading the reading. Does that make sense? I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but yeah, it makes sense to me, so I'll go with that. But anyway, so I'm going to get down to explaining the chapters and what I feel that it means, and what I feel that it brings to manifest something in your life, I guess. To perhaps allow you to think a little differently in your spirituality, your everyday life. So I'm going to get into it. So, again, like I said, it's the chapter 5. It's the Medicinal Herbs chapter. And what it talks about here is... well, what I'm going to do is check this out. What I'll do is I'll open this chapter up here in the book just real quick to kind of give you. I'll read you the first part. It's just like a 2 paragraphs, just to give you this. I guess, visualization of the of the picture so that you can feel like you're there in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to give you, so you can have a mental picture of what I'm talking about. And it's chapter 5. It's called the Parable of the Medicinal Herbs. And it goes on, it starts off with, at that time, the world-honored one addressed Mahakasyapa and the other great disciples, saying, Good, Kasyapa, you have well described the real merits of the Tathagata. Now, right away, if you're new to Buddhism, when it says, at that time, the world-honored one, that is meaning the Buddha himself. Okay, and then it goes on to say, it goes on to say that Kasyapa, you have well described the real merits of a Tathagata, which again is Buddha. And not only Buddha, but all the Buddhas from past, present, and future. Now, it goes on to say, they are truly, as you have said. Indeed, a Tathagata has infinite, boundless, immeasurable merits. And even if you spoke of them for immeasurable millions of kalpas, you could not finish describing them. That is the infinite part of the teaching, that it never stops. You can't get to the end of the teaching. It just keeps going and going and going. That is how the productive life of a bodhisattva keeps going and going and going. So it goes on to say, you should know, Kasyapa, that a Tathagata is a master of all teachings, and whatever he says is entirely free from falsity. By employing the skillful means of wisdom, he elucidates all teachings, and each and every one of his teachings leads to the stage of comprehensive wisdom. You know, that is really cool right there, because that's to say, in any teaching, when you learn something new, you're polishing up that wisdom of you. You know what I mean? Now, a Tathagata observes and comprehends where all teachings ultimately lead, and also knows the deepest workings of the heart and minds of all living beings, fathoming them without hindrance. Moreover, having thoroughly understood and exhausted all teachings, he manifests this totality of wisdom to living beings. Kasyapa, for example, growing in the mountains, valleys, rivers, streams, and grounds of the 3,000 great thousandfold world are plants, trees, thickets, forests, and medicinal herbs. that are different in name and form and great in variety. Yet when a dense cloud blanketing the entire great thousandfold world pours forth its rain, it does so at the same time equally for them all. Its rainfall universally nourishes the plants, trees, thickets, forests, and medicinal herbs with their small roots. Small stems, small branches, small leaves, their medium roots, medium stems, medium branches, and medium leaves, and their large roots, large stems, large branches, and large leaves, whether large or small. Every tree receives its share according to its large, medium, or small capacity. The rainfall of this one cloud makes each of them sprout, grow and blossom, and bear fruit according to its own nature and characteristics. Although growing in the same soil and hydrated by the same rainfall, these plants and trees are all different. Now that right there, those two paragraphs, it gives you the foundation of this whole chapter. That really sums it all up of what the chapter's talking about, and it gives you a picture of the type of teaching that the Buddha is addressing to his disciples there. You know what I'm saying? And letting them know that this teaching is not just for one person, just not for just one classification. This teaching is for all sentient beings. Now, what I'm going to do is let me get to my notes here, and I'm going to go over some of the things of the chapter, and we'll discuss a little bit. I'll break some things down. Now, you know, the setup here is a single rainfall and many plants, right? That's what it's talking about. That's the parable that the Buddha's using to lay this wisdom of knowledge on his disciples of this parable. This is how he's explaining it to them, because the parable, the teaching is so profoundly great that it's hard to understand. You know what I'm saying? Only someone with the knowledge and insight is going to be able to understand this. In other words, only a Buddha with another Buddha can fathom the ultimate reality of all things, can understand the ultimate reality of all things. And that's the beauty of the teaching. That's the phenomenon of the teaching. You know what I'm saying? Because if you read this to just the average person, he's not going to know. He's not going to know how to interpret this. There's going to be many different ways. So this is what the knowledge, insight, and wisdom of the teachings is giving you, so that you dissect this parable and putting it into your life, in your environment, your mental capacity, so that you get something out of whatever it is that you're trying to find, whatever it is that you're looking for in your personal spiritual journey. Now, I'm going to go on here. You know, the Buddha here offers a parable, right, of a great cloud that covers the world. You know what I'm saying? The rain falls evenly. It falls evenly everywhere. But the plants, grasses, shrubs, trees, they absorb the water differently. You know what I mean? And each grows according to its own nature and capacity. Now, this becomes the central metaphor of this chapter. You know what I mean? This becomes exactly how you got to open up your mind to understand this chapter. Now, it also goes on to say that, you know, this teaching is about universal compassion and individual readiness, I believe. You know what I'm saying? Because this is not singling any particular person or capacity or level of spiritual awareness. You know what I mean? This is going throughout the board evenly to all. You know what I'm saying? Now, the Buddha explains that his Dharma is like the rain. You know what I mean? And it is offered equally to all beings. And he does not discriminate based on the status, ability, or your background. Now, but beings receive the teachings according to their karmic conditions, their spiritual maturity, and their unique needs, their unique background to where they're at in their particular life. Because if you're someone who is on your 10th year of a spiritual practice of any sort, you'll receive the Dharma differently than somebody who is on their first day. But knowing that you're receiving it from the same vehicle. You know what I'm saying? You're receiving the same teaching. You're just receiving it according to your mental capacity. You know what I mean? Now, let me see, where's my notes at? Lost them. Okay, yeah, so it even... It breaks it down into these plants, right? In the parable, it uses these plants as meaning that it's all types of practitioners. That's why they're using the plants of various plants. It's of various people, of various cultures, no matter your race, your color, your creed, or what type of spiritual practice you do. It evenly spreads this out to everybody so that they all can get the same practice at whatever capacity they're at. You know what I mean? Now, the plants represent beginners, intermediate practitioners, advanced bodhisattvas, people with different temperaments, wounds, and capacities. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't matter. It's not biased. It's not a biased teaching here. It's non-discriminative spreading of that rain. You know what I mean? Now, also, the Buddha's compassion is, like we were talking about, it's non-hierarchical. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have a rank. The Buddha does not rank beings, and he does not withhold the teachings. And he does not tailor his compassion based on worthiness either. You know what I mean? He simply teaches with an open heart and begins to take, and beings take what they can out of that. You know what I mean? Because that's the only way to do it. There's no way. There's no other way there. You know what I mean? You're not going to understand this teaching at any other rate or capacity, but the rate of you, at the capacity of where you're at in your life. You know what I mean? Now, he simply this teaching simply is just talks about one Dharma with many different expressions. The chapter emphasizes there is one ultimate truth, but it manifests differently depending on the listener. This explains why the Buddha teaches in many styles: parables, precepts, compassion practices, wisdom teachings, and it manifests differently depending on the listener. I like that because it doesn't matter what you're practicing. It doesn't matter who you are, because there's so many different ways to understanding a teaching that nourishes that Buddha nature seed in you, that wisdom seed, that seed of spirituality, that seed of wanting to become a better person, that loving wholesomeness of oneself, to alleviate the sufferings of all sentient beings, including yourself. That is to me that it doesn't matter, because we're all get from the same one vehicle. In other words, we are ultimately, we're all trying to get to that one place. We're ultimately all trying to get enlightened in one shape, form, or another through different religious practices, through different spiritual practices. But to give you the breakdown of that, the ultimate reality of that is that there is only one vehicle, in a sense that we only come from one thing, and we're all ultimately getting back to the one thing. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you are made of just the same matter, particles, atoms, and neutrons that I'm made of. So is this mandala that I'm wearing. You know what I'm saying? It's made of the same particles, breaking it down into that micro science type stuff. Then we all are ultimately we wither into nothing. You know what I'm saying? And that Dharma is that teaching so that you can open that capacity mind so that you understand that. And it doesn't matter who you are or how you practice. Ultimately, the one vehicle is going to do that. It's going to open that mind up. And that's what the medicinal herbs is talking about, is that Dharma, that teaching, which is the rain cloud, is falling down on every single being in this world. And eventually, when something gets watered and cultivated, it eventually springs up and sprouts out into something beautiful. You know what I'm saying? That's just the ultimate reality of the phenomenon. If you spend time in anything that you do to polish that up, to be better at it, to understand it more, the more you do it, the consistency of you doing that is going to give you exactly those results. You know what I'm saying? It's going to eventually flourish into something great. You know what I mean? Because it's something that you're mastering, in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Now, the parable's deeper point is that everyone has Buddha nature. That's really where it's going. Where we're going with this is that we all have that in us. You know what I mean? Even if growth looks different, and it does. You know what I'm saying? Every plant grows. Every being has the seed of awakening. No one is spiritually barren. But we are all getting the same water. You know what I'm saying? We're getting the same water, and how you use that water is going to depend on that blossom fruit, that flourishness, that fluidity of your life, of your spiritual knowledge. You know what I'm saying? We're getting it. We're getting the same rain. We're getting that same intellectual wisdom of the Dharma, but depending on how you use it is going to depend on what your projection is in your spiritual path. You know what I'm saying? Now, just so we can make something clear here, now, you can say, well, this person over here doesn't know anything about the Dharma. So he's like, whatever, he's living a certain life or whatever, and he doesn't know anything about it. What about him? Well, eventually, the phenomena of cause and effect will catch up to that person. he will and he is at this time getting the same Dharma. But his mental capacity hasn't fathomed it yet. And we all go through these things in our life when we figure that out. And this is not something that you're going to be looking for at the bookstore or looking for in a lecture. This answer comes from you. This comes from the silence of you. You know what I'm saying? When you sit there, when the crowd has left and you're sitting alone, and it's just you, and that thing that we call the mind, well, the teachings, the wisdom that you have, the wisdom that you attain throughout your life is going to dictate that mental thought process of you. It's going to dictate that awareness of how you're going to react when you're in that stillness. Are you going to react like you've always have? Oh, well, I guess I'm just going to go drink, or I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to go do this drug, or I'm going to go have this sexual encounter, whatever it is that you do. That silence, that stillness is where the Dharma comes at work. That's when the medicinal herbs, the rainfall seeps down into you to bring that awareness. You know, for myself, I could say here that, man, for a long time, I was in that stillness, and if anything, all these thoughts come into my head, and what better way to remedy these thoughts and these feelings than to go use? It was just that easy. And most people will take that route. That's the delusion of living in this world of samsara. Now, where this medicinal herbs comes into play is that because I've been living this spiritual way, broadening my knowledge and insight of the one vehicle of this Dharma, of living a life of trying to end the suffering in my life as well as trying to share that with others and reliving the suffering somebody else, is in that stillness. Now I can find myself in that stillness and get this thought that comes to me, I want to go use because of this, that, or the other. And now I can just look at it. Because ultimately, what this medicinal herbs is telling you is that it's bringing you this knowledge to be aware, to deal with the suffering, not to not deal with it, because it's easy not to deal with it. It's easier for me to go use. But when you have that awareness that you can have that thought in your head, in your mind, and say, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that you're here. It's okay that you're here, thought. Because you know why? I need you to be here. I need you to be here because you're here, because this suffering thought is here in my thought process right now. This is polishing my awareness up. Now I know how to act. Now I know how to respond. It's okay that you're here. Thank you for being here. But you know what? You don't have to, I don't have to let you take up space in my thought. All I do is just watch you move along. I know that you're there. And I'm glad that you're there because it brings that awareness up in me to say, hey, you know what? Remember, if you go there, remember what it's going to happen to you when you do. And I'm aware of that now. I don't have to say, you know what? I don't want to deal with this emotion. Let me just go use, and I'm going to be in this other state. No, I don't have to do that now. All I got to do is say, you know what? You're right. You're right. I don't want to be back in them sick days. I don't want to be back in a motel room using. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather be free of the hindrances of that lifestyle. And, so yeah, let me go on talk about, the medicinal herbs chapter also teaches inclusivity. It teaches compassion. It teaches respect for individuals' journeys. It teaches that trust in people's innate wisdom. And trust the universality of the spiritual nourishment. I like the trusting in people's innate wisdom is beautiful to me, because in recovery is exactly what you're doing. And not only in recovery, but in spirituality, that's what you're doing. You're putting your faith and the capacity, knowledge of your wisdom along with somebody else's to bring about a new wisdom, to bring about a new result. And that's the only way to bring to cultivate new ways and to keep that wisdom and teaching and spiritual knowledge going. When you share that, a Buddha together with another Buddha finds the ultimate reality of all things. You know what I mean? That's the cool part about it. Is so when you put two people together who are wanting the same thing. That's why in the Christian world they always say more than one person prays at one time. Then guess what, man? Things start happening. Things start moving in the room. You know what I'm saying? In your life, and it's beautiful stuff. Now, also, I like to talk about in this chapter. It talks about 3 sciences, which is one of the things I think a lot of people miss in this chapter. It talks about 3 sciences, which is really. Let me see if I can find it real quick, just to get that out there and show you what it's talking about, because this is a really cool part of the teaching that gets overlooked. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those it's just a one little sentence, but it's part of that phenomena of the teaching. You know what I'm saying? Let me see if I can find it. Give me just a minute. Where's it at? Okay, well, I should have underlined it, but I don't want to take too much time just looking for it here. But let me see if it comes out in another little. Okay, well, I can't find it right off. I don't want to go through the whole chapter looking for it, but anyway, there's a part in there that talks about 3 sciences, and I really think that this is important because it lets you know the deep philosophical, scientific part of these ancient sutras that they were being taught a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? And the first science that it talks about is the science of the world. Worldly knowledge. That's the science that it's talking about. That's really deep in this chapter. The worldly knowledge. This includes understanding human behavior, social dynamics, psychology, cultural norms, the causes and sufferings of everyday life. This fits so well with recovery and a spiritual journey. You know what I mean? It's just beautiful stuff to me. And it also talks about the second science, which is the inner knowledge. The inner knowledge refers to the insight into the consciousness, the workings of thought, emotion, and perception, and the roots of delusion. The path of mental liberation. Because ultimately, when you talk about knowledge and wisdom in a spiritual and a recovery life, it's talking about the inner you. It no longer is talking about this external tangible things of the 5 sense faculties, of this hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, and touching, and that sort of thing. It's not talking about that. It's going into the inside mind. This goes back to the second parable of the first parable of the burning house. In other words, the mental afflictions of the mental capacity of these thoughts that keep racing in your mind that dictate how you move your life. You know what I'm saying? There's really cool stuff here. And it also talks about the third science, which is referred to as it refers to the third science, which is the science of the transcendent knowledge. In other words, this includes karma and rebirth. This includes the stages of awakening, the capacities of bodhisattvas, the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth. Which is really cool because, you know, the stages of awakening, the capacities of a bodhisattva to live that path of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path is deep, philosophical, and inside of a greater capacity of knowledge for yourself, to move your life in a different way, to understand your life in a phenomenal type of way. You know what I mean? And, you know, and these three sciences of knowledge and knowledge and insight of the teachings and the wisdoms in the consciousness and the transcendent power of this stuff is in the medicinal herb chapter. It is the rain, which is the Dharma. It is the plants, which are the beings with different capacities, you and I. And it is the three sciences is the Buddha's complete understanding of how to teach each being. The Buddha uses these sciences to know what each person needs and teach without discrimination and offer one Dharma that manifests differently to each listener. You know what I mean? And this is why this chapter really emphasizes the one teaching and many responses. You know what I mean? It really cool stuff here, man. And I think that this really this chapter really starts activating that thing in you, in that part of your brain, that prefrontal cortex part that activates so that it, you know, when that activates, it activates the chakras in you. And we have 108 chakras in the body that need to be activated on a daily basis. If you activate these chakras on a daily basis, your life will start to transcend in a different way. You're gonna be amazed at what can happen to you. And I know this to be true because I do it in my own personal journey, in my own personal spiritual journey. And I just thought it was a cool thing that I wanted to just share it with you guys because, like I said, in the last 3 weeks, I think I've read this thing for sure more than 10 times in the last 3 weeks. You know, sometimes I do it twice in one day, along with the book that coincides with the Threefold Lotus Sutra, which is Buddhism for Today by the founder of Ishoko Sekai. And I'll read this and then I go back to read this to get a better understanding. And I'm going back and forth like this with the readings. And I swear to God, I've already read it. I don't know, gosh, for sure. Like I said, many times. And not only that, but then listening through someone else's voice, so that I could get a different understanding when I hear somebody else read the chapter, and I do that, gosh, and I just things get clearer, man, and it's just beautiful, beautiful wisdom and knowledge. It's food for your spiritual capacity, for your spiritual and knowledge and wisdom. You know what I'm saying? To lead your life in a different way, so that it consistently stays on the path like that. And you don't have to revert back to the old ways, like myself, the old ways of addiction, the old ways of being out there in that cyclical world of suffering. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, that's why I wanted to share that with you guys today. I hope that you guys really got something out of today's lesson or lecture or whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? So without further ado, I'm gonna I'm just gonna ring us out. It's one of the things I wanted to start doing in my practice, in my videos, is just ringing out and using that power of the vibration, you know what I mean, of the bell to touch energies, you know what I'm saying? So that my energies touch your energies, touch the energies of your ear, that hear disruptive sounds of the sounds of the universe, that harmony of the universe that the universe wants you to hear, that the body wants to hear, but we have that disrupting the sounds of that every day, and ringing out with a bell and doing mantras and stuff like that is a good way to bring yourself back to the here and now. And so with that being said, if you would please at this time just hit that subscribe button. Just know that when you do hit the subscribe button, hit the like, give me a thumbs up. Just know that when you do that, you're helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, brain trauma, just different things, right? Because I've dealt with all those things in my life, and I know a way out, and my way out could be your way out. So yeah, without further ado, let's ring out. Thank you very much. Nam myo renge kyo, nam myo renge kyo, nam myo renge kyo. Eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, thank you for guiding me. Founder Nikyo, great teacher, the one vehicle, thank you for guiding me. Co-founder Milkyo, Bodhisattva, the way of compassion, thank you for guiding me. All sentient beings connected to myself and everyone out there, thank you for guiding us. Thank you all for guiding each other. Thank you for watching my video today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Till the next time, on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.